Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are looking at tips on how to cut rough opal. Tip number one, folks, is what type of opal are you cutting? The reason that's an important question is because the type of opal you are cutting will make a huge difference on how you approach the piece of rough. If, for example, you are cutting knobby opal, which is found from Lightning Ridge, Australia, there is theoretically a better direction to cut the stone from. I'll show you a pretty cool specimen that I have that is a great example of how knobby opal forms in the sediment of the opal fields. I will also point out to you the white cap or the top of the opal, as well as the bottom of the opal or the back of the opal. No one is really too sure why knobby opal forms in a way that means that when you take the top off it faces better from that direction. It's just one of those elusive mysteries that surrounds opal. Now, it can vary from piece to piece, but 95% of the time, if you have a knobby opal and if you're not sure what opal you have, just contact the person you bought it from or contact the miner that you bought it from, whoever, just to see what type of opal you have. But 95% of the time it's going to face better if you take that cap off and then expose it from top down. If, for example, you have seam opal, which forms differently, it forms in cracks and fissures underground, that doesn't have a preferred way of being faced. That is entirely up to you and your experience as an opal cutter. A common trick is to expose a little bit of the face. If you can't see the colour bar already, expose a little bit of the face from one direction and see if you can see it from the other side as well. That will give you a good indication on which side faces better, because remember, when you're cutting opal, the brighter the colour and the play of colour, the patterns that are involved have a huge impact on its value as well as the gem as a whole. Even if you're not selling it, you want to have a better gem if you're going to be cutting it. So have a look when you're cutting seam opal, have a look to see if you can tell which side it faces better from. Use your best judgment and cut it from that way. If you're cutting boulder opal, it's very different to opal that comes from Lightning Ridge or any opal that comes from Cuba PD. Boulder opal forms in cracks and fissures of ironstone boulders. It's usually preferred to cut a boulder opal with a Dremel, purely because it more often than not has an undulating face where you can't get quite the same result on a cabbing machine as you could with a Dremel, for example. If you're cutting opal from Cuba PD, it's a mix between seam and knobby opal from the ridge, in the sense that inspect the piece of rough that you have, see which way it faces better from. If there's a natural potch backing, then try and keep that. If there isn't, just see which direction it faces better from and maximise your yield for the gem. Use your best judgment. That's going to be a motif or a theme that keeps popping up. When it comes to cutting opal, use your best judgment and use your experience to cut the opal for you, because that's going to prove better than winging it. When it comes to crystal opal, which can be found in Cuba PD as well as Lightning Ridge, it has no potch backing. When it comes to cutting it, it's up to you to decide which way it's going to face best. Are you looking for the largest stone? Are you looking for the brightest gem? Are you looking for the gem with the best play of colour? These are all questions you need to consider before you actually take to the cabbing wheels, because the moment you touch those wheels, that material's gone, it doesn't come back. In your head, just think to yourself, what type of gem am I after? And approach it from that way. Tip number two is dry the opal. That is of the utmost importance. Before you start cutting it, it's vital that you dry the opal to be able to see the inclusions better. I will try and show you an example now from a previous video I released last week, where When the opal is wet, you can't really see all the scratches, all the minor sand spots, any cracks that might be in the opal. That's why it's important to dry the opal thoroughly so you can see any minor inclusions that might be hidden when water is filling those imperfections. Tip number 3, guys, is to use a gem torch and, more importantly, plan the cut. You can buy gem torches online in places like Amazon, etc. If you have a bit more money to spend, Justin Thomas at Black Opal Direct has a fantastic torch available for sale. If you don't want to invest that sort of money, or you don't have one but you want to have a go anyway, use a phone camera or a standard household torch, that sort of thing. Just try and reduce the brightness of the light if possible. The purpose of a torch is to be able to see inside the opal before you're cutting it. Now what I'll do is include a clip here that I used from the first video I have on this channel where I'm looking through the colour bar. So you have the torch on the back side and it's shining towards you through the opal. This allowed me to see the potch and inclusions inside that colour bar before I cut the stone. Now with your opal you might see that there are cracks on the inside, you might see sand spots, or the potch actually goes deeper than you expect. Whatever you see on the inside of the opal, just make sure before you go to the cabbing wheels to plan your cut. Just what I mean by that is just in your head visualize what surface you're taking down. Are you going to have to slice a bit? What bit are you what bits are you cutting out? What bits can you smooth over? Anything that you're planning to do on that cabbing wheel, plan before cutting. You can only cut once, so plan twice, cut once. That alleviates any risk of wasting opal. It alleviates any risk of making the opal smaller than you expect. It's not going to be as bright. You're going to cut through the wrong colour. There are a million different things that can go wrong when cutting opal, but by looking through with the torch and planning your attack, it's going to save you a lot of money and it's going to make you some great gems. Tip number 4, everyone. It sounds obvious, but don't rush. I once read somewhere from an opal cutter who left a comment somewhere on Facebook. They said something and it really resonated with me. Go slow, then go even slower. There's no rush when it comes to cutting opal. Opal is expensive, whether it's in the rough, whether it's a rub or a finished piece. Opal is expensive, so there's no need to rush. You haven't got a time limit, just take it slow and steady. If you go too fast and you press too hard on the wheels, you leave it just that little second longer, you might cut through the best colour of the opal and ruin it. Tip number 5, I'm going to summarise in one word as even. And underneath I've put a few examples of what I mean by that. Now remember, when you're cutting an opal, you're cutting a gemstone. Whether it's a diamond, a tanzanite, an emerald, a sapphire, name anything. If you ever look at them, they're almost perfect. Every side is even, the polish is even, things like that. So underneath, I've put the dome, for example. You don't really facet opal. It's a cabochon, so it has a dome over the top. So once you're getting to the point where you're finishing the pre-polish or anything along those lines, just check, look across. So hold it up to eye level and look across the opal and turn it around. Is the dome even? Does it undulate at any point? Have you missed a bit out? Things like that. The reason being even is important is because ultimately it's most likely going to be set into jewellery, or it's going to have to be appreciated by someone in some sort of collection. And it's best when it's perfect. Now I use perfect as a loose term because not everything can be perfect. Some problems will arise along the way. But by keeping things even, it will make things better for you. So is the dome even? Is the back even? And what I mean by that is, opal it tends to be sold and priced via carat weight. So if you have a really thin colour bar across the top, you can't have 6 carats of potch sitting on the back, because it's an uneven stone. It needs to look even. Imagine it's going to be set into a ring or a pendant. What is going to make that opal look even? Is the shape even? If you're doing a circle, is it a perfect circle? If you're doing an oval, is it a perfect oval? Is one side fatter than the other? If you're doing a teardrop, is one side of the teardrop what I like to call the shoulder of the teardrop? Is that higher than the right hand side, vice versa? Those sort of things. It needs to be as perfect as you can make it. Tip number 6, folks, is probably the most obvious. Just practice. It's just practice makes perfect. The beauty of opal is that you can get potch. Potch is readily available. It's valueless, colourless opal that's common, and you can either buy it in bulk for dirt cheap, or you could probably get some sent to you for free if you find the right person. It's great to use before you're cutting anything with colour or with anything of value, purely because it's the exact same material, it just doesn't have any colour play to it. So it's great to start to understand how it feels on the wheels, how quickly does it grind away on a certain grit, how deep do the scratches go. You can then use it to practice your shaping, so practice your circles, practice your ovals, practice your cushion cuts, practice your dome, practice slicing, practice drying the opal and looking for inclusions. Anything and everything there is to do with opal cutting, you can practice using potch. Hey guys, thank you very much for watching. I know this was a different style of video today, but I thought I'd just make it because someone commented on one of my videos a couple of weeks ago asking for some tips on how to approach their pieces of rough opal before they actually tackle them. So I thought I'd just make this quick, hopefully short, informative video that just has the basic tips on how to cut opal from the rough and give you a better understanding as to what you're doing before you tackle anything of colour, etc. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I appreciate you tuning in. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it. If you have any feedback, please comment down below. I try and pump out weekly videos. I try and release on a Sunday, so if you want to stick around and watch more videos or watch my old ones, then please, by all means, just subscribe. And I will see you next week for what will hopefully be a cutting video, because I have a couple of pieces that I need to cut. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.